Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing avoid saying this, Dumpee warning. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing avoid saying this, Dumpee warning. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you need to avoid saying certain things. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 things a dumpee needs to avoid saying. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is negative things to mutual friends. So if you've been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you may have mutual friends with your now former partner. Maybe they are friends, maybe they're family members who you know speak to your ex still. But either way, you need to be very careful about what you say to these people. I always like to suggest that if you are speaking to a mutual friend of your ex, if you're speaking to somebody that you know also talks to your ex, then just imagine that your ex is standing behind them. Because it doesn't matter if your mutual friend tells you, hey, you can tell me whatever you want, I promise, I'm not going to pass this on. It doesn't matter if they say that. In my opinion, from my experience, from the research that I've done, most mutual friends will pass that information on. Now, they're not necessarily doing this in a way to try and be against you. They're not trying to lie to you. They're not trying to take sides. But a lot of the time, they just feel that they're representing both of you. They feel that maybe they have given you their word on something, but perhaps they can actually help you by passing this information on. And unfortunately, friends might mean well, but a lot of the time it doesn't go well, especially if information is going through a third party. Sometimes things can get lost in translation, and your ex may hear something which actually damages your chances of getting back together, even if what you said wasn't necessarily bad. So, with all of that being said, you could imagine that saying something negative to your mutual friend could be particularly difficult for you if it was to go back to your ex. If you imagine saying something positive could get misconstrued, saying something negative is certainly not going to help your cause. And this comes in 2 categories. The first category is speaking negatively about your ex. You might say, for instance, you feel very frustrated about how they've treated you. You might say that you hate them. You might say this, that, or the other. It doesn't matter what you say. If it has a negative connotation and it gets back to your ex, like I said, it probably will. As you can imagine, this isn't going to help your cause. So if you're feeling really down on a certain day and you just want to unload, you just want to release all of the emotion that's in your mind about how you're feeling towards your ex, I would strongly suggest you speak with somebody who doesn't know your ex, who isn't going to speak with your ex. Because if this information gets passed on, even if they try to do it for the right reason, it is not likely to help you. Now, the other category of negativity that you need to avoid speaking about to a mutual friend is negativity about yourself. You might not even be speaking bad about your ex, but you might just be saying, I feel awful, I can't sleep, I've got no energy, I've got no desire for life anymore. If you say these types of things, or worse, and it gets back to your ex, they are not likely to feel romantically attracted to you. If somebody hears information about their former partner that sounds worrying or upsetting, it's not going to make them feel romantically connected. It's not going to make them miss you and make them want to reconnect with you. It might make them feel worried about you. It might make them feel pity towards you, but that is not romantic feelings. That's not something you want if you want to try to get your ex back. So even if you're not speaking negative about your ex, if you're speaking negative about yourself, if you're showcasing yourself as somebody who is upset, who is vulnerable, who doesn't know what to do with their life, these things are not attractive. Yes, you need to be speaking about your feelings, but no, you don't need to be speaking to your ex via a third party. If you want to get something off your chest that you don't want your ex to hear, I suggest you speak with family and friends who are not connected to your ex. It's so important you release your emotion. It's so important you go through talk therapy, whether that is with a friend or family member, or whether that's with a professional such as myself. I provide an audio coaching service where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. And if you would like more details on this, please go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Failing that, you may want to consider contacting a local doctor and or local counsellor. Ultimately, the main things that you release the emotion, you speak about your feelings, you talk things through, but it mustn't get back to your ex. They are the only person who don't need to know, and therefore if a third party may pass this on, please avoid telling them as well. Speak to friends, family, myself, a doctor, or a counsellor. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast, about avoid saying this, Dumpee warning. And point number 2 is I need you to your ex. So if you've been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, generally speaking, I will suggest that you never contact your ex again unless your ex contacts you first. That is the generalized advice. It might be somewhat different for your specific unique situation, but generally speaking, you shouldn't be chasing your ex. You shouldn't be texting your ex. You shouldn't be calling your ex. But a lot of people do. And whether or not you are somebody who is doing this, or maybe your ex did reach out first and you now decide to respond, you need to be making sure that you are not telling your ex in your own words that you need them. Now, this might sound like something which would be a good idea if you want to reconnect with somebody. You want to tell them that you need them, so they might feel that they want to be back with you in a relationship. But from my research, I would suggest that telling somebody you need them after they have dumped you is not going to help you realign the scales of value. The scales of value are between two people that need to be somewhat similar if they are likely to have a healthy, successful romantic relationship. If one person feels that they're the higher value person because the other person is begging, pleading, saying, I need you, I'm desperate, I can't live without you, all of those things and more, if you're saying those things to your ex, it is not going to make them feel that you are a suitable romantic option. Instead, it's going to make them feel worried about you. Like I was saying in point number 1, they might feel pity towards you, but that's not a romantic feeling. They might speak to you because they're really concerned, but they're not likely to want to be in a loving relationship with you. Now, of course, during the time of a breakup, you would have said your piece. You would have said that you don't want this relationship to end. You would have said that you loved them. You would have said lots and lots of things at that moment. Maybe then you said, I need you. Maybe then you said, I want you. Those things during the breakup itself are more understandable. It's an emotional time. Don't beat yourself up for what was said there and then. But I'm talking about after the aftermath has settled, the dust has settled, everything is now on a calm. If you then contact your ex or they contact you first and you respond and you say, I need you, that comes across as needy. And neediness is not attractive. You want your ex to fall in love with you romantically. You don't want them to be feeling worried about you or feeling pity towards you. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast, about avoid saying this, Dumpee warning. And point number 3 is I hate you to your ex. So again, this is linked towards what you may say directly to your ex. Maybe this is because you've broke no contact, you've just sent them a message, you've called them up and left them an answer phone message potentially, maybe you've knocked on their door, they've answered, and you've shouted at them, and then you've walked off. Or perhaps your ex has actually reached out to you, and you've responded in a negative, almost hateful way. Now, you might feel that they deserve everything you're saying. You might feel that they don't deserve your respect. But if you want to try to get back together, you need to be trying to think things through in a more clear-minded way. If you want to get somebody back into a relationship, you can't be being hateful towards them. You can't be saying things which are going to cause arguments. You can't be negative. Whether or not you feel that they deserve you to shout at them, whether or not you feel that they deserve you to be releasing your emotions by saying how much they've upset you, they've broken your heart, all of these things, Think about it clearly before you say something. As I've already said, I don't suggest you break no contact. If you've been dumped, in most instances, you should never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. So first of all, I don't suggest you reach out to your ex anyway. Now, if your ex reaches out to you, that is a good sign. If it's for an unnecessary reason, this showcases that they're thinking about you. They want to speak with you. This is your opening into a communication stage to potentially reconnect with your ex. The last thing you want to be doing at that point is to saying, I hate you. Because if you are listening to this podcast, then you want to try to get your ex back. So think about it in a more logical sense. If you want to try to get them back, and then you say something such as, I hate you, just because in the back of your mind you want to get it off your chest, but deep down you don't really mean it. Deep down you actually love them and you want them back. Think about it. Is that going to help you? You know, I would say more often than not, if you tell your ex that you hate them after they've reached out to you, they're probably going to stop contacting you. Now, if you reach out to them after they've ended a relationship, if you break no contact, reach out to them and say, I hate you, or something similar to that, again, do you think that's going to help your cause? Do you think that's going to make them think, well, I ended this relationship and now they've texted me and said they hate me? You know, is that going to help them decide that they actually want to reconnect with you? It's very, very unlikely. Now, you might not be thinking of saying, I hate you, but it might be something somewhat negative, and the point is the same. If you want to try to get your ex back, you have to be thinking positive. You have to forgive and forget. Yes, at the time of reconnection and beyond, there will be conversations. Again, you'll be able to get your point across at the appropriate time. You will see if you can work things out. But you shouldn't be chasing your ex, contacting them, telling them hateful comments. And if they reach out to you and you want to try to reconnect, don't scare them away by responding negatively. Another example is if an ex, a dumper, reaches out to a dumpee and the dumpee responds by putting something such as, oh, well, where have you been over the last 6 months? Okay, so it doesn't actually have to be I hate you, it just has to have a negative connotation. That's what you need to be avoiding. And as you could see from that example, that is not positive. If you are instantly getting into an argument with your ex, if you're instantly going on the front foot, accusing them of going away from your life and now coming back and being very negative and aggressive with it, that is not going to help your cause. That is not going to help your chances of one day getting your ex back. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.